All right, this is a sprint board that's used in a daily Scrum. There's a lot of tools out there that people use for Scrum. I am not a fan, personally, because what happens is the tool becomes a master. The team starts serving the tool rather than the tool serving the team. I like this. Let me explain what this is. So we've got, you may not be able to read it, but this section right here is the section, these are the things that haven't been started yet. This next section is what's in progress. And this section is the stuff that's done. Now each of the orange post-it notes are the things that, this is their sprint backlog. These are the things that the development team promised the product owner they would get done during this sprint. The kind of horizontal alignment is how they have broken that thing down into tasks that are completable in whatever they define as their day. 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours. It varies, right? Because there's holidays, there's vacations, there's things like that. But these are the individual tasks that should be able to be done in a day. This dotted line with this orange card, this is their way of saying this is work. If we get done with these things before our sprint is over, we'll pull that work in. So at each sprint, at the very first Scrum meeting, each person touches the board. The person will go up, they'll say, I will do this. They take the post-it from the to be started, they put it in the in progress, and then they move on. And then the next person does that. At the next daily Scrum, they will come and they'll take their item that they put in progress, and they'll either move it to done or they'll explain why it is not done. Yes, Janice?
Who comes up with what's going to happen in that first column?
The development team.
So the whole team comes together.
The whole team,
and
they
then
brainstorm.
They also go up there and take
Right.
out what they'll do.
Yep, and then individuals will go up and they'll select which of those tasks they are choosing to do. It's an opportunity where they can either leverage their existing specialty or, hey, I don't know how to do Python programming. I'm willing to learn if somebody can teach me. Yeah, well, let's pair you up with this person and you guys work together, get them started, so that's another way of handling that. This is one of the hardest things for leaders to grasp, is that because it means reorganizing their organization around product, not project. So project, it says you're going to have these deliverables. There's a finite start and a finite end, and you may pull together, like creating a movie is a project, right? You pull the actors together, all the script writers, and all that sort of stuff. Here we've got a team. We've got this product. You are dedicated to this product. Now, if it's a really complex product, you may break it down by feature or capability into multiple Scrum teams. But then the work, we don't organize work around projects. We organize the work around these sprints with the backlog. So do you still need requirements, and business analytical skills to create requirements and stuff? Certainly, you still need that skill, but there's no job title, right? So companies will attach somebody who was a BA, for example, to the product owner to help them out. This is, for people in leadership positions, this is one of the hardest mental transitions to make. This leap from a project-oriented organization to a product-oriented organization. Now, the product, products go through a life cycle, right? So they may be retired and then things change. Here's another big change is if you've got a product that is so sophisticated, has multiple Scrum teams because you've broken it down by capability or feature, the product architecture or the technical architecture, whichever, is the thing that should drive the Scrum team architecture. If you refactor that product or technical architecture, you need to refactor the Scrum team architecture. Another important clarification, we talk about the Scrum team delivering something, like in this case, every 2 weeks, and that it needs to be potentially releasable. The key word there is potentially. It's up to the product owner to decide, are we going to take that to market or not? Or are we going to implement that? Or no, that's not ready. We really have to do some integration testing with some things that aren't going to be ready for another couple sprints or whatever. That's fine. That's fine.
The people on the Scrum team, that's all they do. I saw kind of your eyes go, well, that's never going to happen. I mean, everyone's got 5 different things they're a part of. So are these people 100%, do they have to be dedicated to this product?
Absolutely. And here's why. By asking people to split their time. Remember earlier when I talked about how to get the most out of this class, I said humans are lousy multitaskers. In fact, we don't multitask, we time slice. And we're really crappy at it. There's high switching costs. Well, you're incurring it when you have people focused on multiple things. You're incurring whether you're going to implement Scrum or Agile at all or not, if the single greatest thing you can do to improve the throughput of work in your organization, reduce WIP. This is basic queuing theory. I can share the math with you if you like. Reduce WIP. The more you increase WIP, the more you give somebody things to do, the more you have stuff in progress, the slower your throughput. I don't care if we're talking Agile or not. So when you have a guy divided 5 different ways from Sunday, they're just going to move slower. Plus they got probably 5 people hounding them about that. Did everybody get this? This is how a daily Scrum is conducted. Each member on the Scrum team goes up to the board, they touch the board, they move a tag. Or they explain why they can't. We're going to get into the whole organizational implications. All right, real quickly, the role of the product owner. As I mentioned earlier, this is the linchpin. The second reason Scrum teams or Agile teams will struggle or fail after sins of leadership, ineffective product owner, because they've got a huge job. They are the one person on the hook to ensure that the product delivers the business value on which it was justified. Right? They have to be a stakeholder synthesizer. They are the keeper of the vision. They have to formulate. I mentioned before that besides maintaining the product backlog, there's a whole bunch of other work they have to do. And we'll talk about that a little later, not all of it. But they have to have a strategic vision for the product. They are the direction and priority setter. They are real-time decision maker. They have to be available to the development team. The development team should never stop working. If they've got a question that has to be answered by the product owner needs to be there, because otherwise that work stops. We don't want work to stop. We want them to be available. They're a team ambassador. They represent the work of the team to other products, and they are a heat shield. Who is the only person that can give new, change, or take away work from the Scrum team? It is the product owner. So if you have a manager, an uninvolved or remotely involved manager, maybe even of higher rank, who stumbles into a member of the development team in the hallway and says, I really got this pressing customer problem. Can you take a few hours and do that for me? The proper answer for the development team member to give to that manager is, you need to see the product owner. The product owner is the only person who can affect the development team's work. So there's all sorts of characters. They got to be available. They got to have commitment to it. They have to be granted the responsibility. They have to possess the authority. Typically, you like to see this be the person in the business who is what you would consider that product's leader. If you can't get that person, then you want that product leader to anoint someone to be the product owner and grant them their power of attorney. The product owner cannot be this type of role, well, let me think about that, or let me go back and check with this. Nope, make a decision. And that decision's got to stick. So that's why they have to have that power of attorney. They need to understand lane discipline, what's within their purview, what's not. Be willing to collaborate, obviously with different stakeholders. They have to understand the product. It's underlying technology. They need to understand the organization. They need to understand the organization's politics. They need to understand all that stuff. They have to have courage. Yes, your request is very important. It's just not the most important thing today. Right? And they have to be able to tell that to people of higher rank. They have to have the diplomacy attack to do that. Scrum Master. This is the person who, as I mentioned before, is the keeper of the framework. They are the master of the framework. They are not the master of the team. In most cases, they are quiet. They're like Switzerland. They are observing. They do not interfere with the team except when the team is struggling with some aspect of the framework, with somebody who's trying to co-opt the framework, maybe one of those interfering interlopers of higher rank who's been otherwise remotely or uninvolved and wants all of a sudden to insert themselves. They will help with things like that. So they're a neutral party. They teach and coach the Scrum team. They also teach and coach other managers, people, stakeholders. This is how this works now. We're not doing it that way anymore. We're doing it this way. They want to observe the end-to-end flow. They'll look for things that they know we can speed this up. We can avoid this problem. And they'll share those so we can make the team a little better. They'll share that sort of things. They'll help, another thing is helping the team. We don't want them to be this little cocoon. So we got to help the team radiate information. So these kind of stakeholders are interested in this kind of information. How are you tracking to your commitments? Or when is this going to be done? They help them radiate that kind of, and there's a variety of reporting techniques for doing that. And another important thing is they'll work with the other Scrum Masters to make the overall organization better. Sometimes we'll hear that, well, aren't Scrum Masters the same thing as what project managers are? Nope, totally different. So where a project manager works on planning, the Scrum Master works on coaching. Where the project manager works on allocating and assigning, the Scrum Master is teaching. Versus managing execution, they're protecting the team. Where the project manager manages risk, these guys advise. Right? Because the development team is doing all this. Right? The project manager manages the team, the Scrum Master tries to stay out of their way. And where the project manager manages the stakeholders, the Scrum Master just advocates. It's the product owner that manages the stakeholders. Then we've got the development team. These are the folks, these are the ones that are building the product. You want it to be high value, high reliability, highly change adaptive. This is the people who decide where the product owner gives them the what and the when. The development team figures out the how. They do the sprint planning. They self-organize as to who's going to do what. They execute the sprint. They conduct their daily scrum. They do sprint reviews, sprint retrospectives, and personal and team development. Hey, is there an opportunity for Jane to learn UX, user experience design or engineering or something? Yeah, we'll see if we can make that work on this next sprint. They do stuff like that. Qualities, among them, they possess all the skills required to take care of that product. They should have all the skills or be capable of acquiring, developing those skills. Right? They are not a team of single-skilled specialists. They are a team of multi-learning, multi-skilled. They have this growth mindset. Here's an example. This is another big rub. You have people say, well, my specialty is testing. This is what I do. I do integration testing. Great, that's your specialty. Trouble is, we don't have enough work to keep you busy, and I'm not going to invent work. So you need to pick some other task. You need to develop some other skills. Everybody carries a rifle. So, and we've had this. We've had people where we've had a daily scrum, and we'll have one person who looks at the board of things to do and says, well, I don't know how to do any of those things. Super. Which one you want to learn? You don't get to do nothing. And we have a lot of work to do to get done. So pick one, and then we'll figure out how to teach that to you. And a typical way of doing that is pairing. Pair them with somebody else who knows how to do that. So Jane here, for example, her specialty might be Python programming. But you know what? She's going to have to learn Java, JavaScript. She will. Cybersecurity might be another, not their specialty, but certainly a skill. And you know, you work in the finance industry, so you should learn something about the environment. So maybe something about stocks and bonds and regulations, things like that. So everybody, no one can be just a single line. This is one of the hurdles that you have to overcome with the rank and file, because they've been putting bread on the table by just being a super electrical engineer. Awesome, we need that specialty. We need more from you. You also need to know how to do this.
So if I'm on the team and I don't know how to do anything that's on that board, and I need to be paired with someone, is that someone, do they have to be part of the team?
Yes.
They do. So I can't
Preferably.
be paired outside of the team.
At last resort. So here's what we've got. Scrum team, you got the product owner, one dedicated full-time person per Scrum team. Scrum master, one dedicated full-time person per Scrum team. Development team, 3 to 9 dedicated, multi-skilled, multi-learning, full-time people. When I say the word sprint team, I mean the developers plus the Scrum master. When I say the word Scrum team, I mean all of them plus the product owner. Cool? Another thing we have found useful is kind of a universal job description. And it consists of, everybody's job consists of 5 roles. The first one is producer. What do you contribute? Well, I'm a product owner. Well, I'm a Scrum master. Well, I'm a dev team member. Okay, that's your producer. So that is how you vary. After that, everyone is a talent and resource manager, even if the only resource they're managing is themselves. Everybody is responsible to be an entrepreneur and innovator, to be a personal and team developer, and to be a good citizen and friend. If you still need to do performance reviews, I guess companies are still doing those. If I were HR King, I would say, those are your 5 roles. Give me a half a page in prose of how you've advanced that role this year or this reporting period. That's it. So earlier I talked about how Scrum was closer to or product development or any of these things were closer to an empirical art than they were to a defined process. Let me give you an example. In a theater, a theatrical play, you have the producer, those are the people who provide the money in the venue. You have the director, the play's director, the person who calls the shots, determines what, why, and when, ultimately responsible for the quality and the success of the play. You've got the cast, those are the people on stage, right, doing the work. You have a stage manager, they're the off-stage person making sure props hit their prop cues, lights hit their light cues, music hits their music cues, things like that. You have those various crews, the prop crew, the music crew, the lighting crew, like that. You do a showing, which is the presentation of the play, and then you have the audience. In Scrum, the producer is the company, the director is the product owner, the cast is the development team, the stage manager is the Scrum master, the crew is the agile team managers, a showing is a sprint, and the audience is the customers. That's how they compare. Yes, sir.
Would the showing be more of the product increment?
Sure. That's the result of the sprint.
So that's what you're saying.
So the
here?
sprint is the actual conducting the play. There's ways of doing it. Here's the first thing I'll tell you. And this applies to any organizational transformation, any change like that. Here's what you should not do. You should not make a big deal out of it. Do not hang banners. Do not have kickoff meetings. Do not put out newsletters. Don't do any of that crap. Just start behaving differently. If you make a big deal out of it, it's like you want to be the pilot of the aircraft that just had one engine go on fire. Do you want to hear a pilot come over the intercom that's going out of their head? Oh, this is crazy, we're in trouble, we got an engine on fire. Or do you want to hear calm, cool, collected, everything's under control? You want that, right? That's what you need to be. You need to be Chuck Yeager. Right? As soon as you make and we'll talk about other techniques for getting ready for this, and then how do you actually begin. It's a whole section. It's basically the contents of the how section. All right. Let's bust a few myths. So, Agile is a methodology to implement it. to be implemented. I think we've talked about this. It is not a methodology, it's a framework. It is not a program you implement. It is a set of values that you choose to adopt. There are frameworks that operate within this, under the larger umbrella of Agile, Scrum, XP, things like that, Lean Kanban. In Agile, there is no planning. Now, that's a common myth. That is really wrong. Agile recognizes that we have a really lousy ability to predict change. That's why there is as much planning as there is. Every 2 weeks, you're planning. In Agile, project management goes away. No. In Agile, the roles of project manager and the position of project manager, the role of project management office, those all go away. But people are still expected to honor their commitments, to make a commitment and honor it. In fact, if you look at the traditional areas out of the PMI PIM book of knowledge, this is how they track across the product owner, scrum master, and dev team roles in Agile. So those skills, just like the skills of a business analyst or testing skills or integration skills, they don't go away. We just don't have a position called that anymore. Another myth, it's a new methodology for doing all kinds of work. Somebody asks, where would you not use this, right? So we no longer have a need for linear development methodologies like waterfall. Well, the fact is there is no one size fits all. Both traditional waterfall and Agile have a place. And here's how we carve that up. I'm going back to the Stacy matrix. Simple problems, don't bother with Agile. You're trying to move your email from one server to another. You're trying to move your data center from one building to another. You know what to do. You know how to do it. Just go do it. If it's so large that you need a formal project plan, fine. If you can do it from a spiral notebook in your shirt pocket, fine. You do it. The unknown, that's a process of discovery. This is, how do we put a man on the moon in 10 years? You know, that's a whole different set of rigor. But everything in between, everything that's complex, that's where Agile has a good fit. So it's not one size fits all. So I want to back up because we talked about what if you don't produce a tangible product. So when we've worked with R&D organizations within a product development, larger product development organization, they don't produce a product, the R&D organization. Their job is to reduce risk for the product development team. So they'll test out different hypotheses. Say, will this be viable? Will this, one, solve the problem? And two, will it do so in a easy, replicable way? Can we make money? That sort of thing. So often their job is to move the risk from that upper right quadrant down to something more manageable for the product development team when they hand it off to the product development team. So again, their outcome is not a product, but it's a reduction in risk. And most of their scrums are what in the Agile world are called spikes, experiments. I have this hypothesis. Here's the process by which I'm going to test it. Here are the results of that test. Here are my observations from those results. Here are the conclusions I can draw from those observations. And here are my recommendations based on those conclusions. Next. We worked with one company. They had to figure out how can we have a lead in the heart. We want to show its position on a two-dimensional surface in a three-dimensional heart, and the patient is breathing, sometimes coughing, sometimes moving. How do we do that with any degree of accuracy, useful accuracy? That would be helpful to the EP. Well, it's a bunch of experiments. Those are largely mathematical problems. But that's an example of an R&D organization. They don't produce a product. Their outcome is a reduction in risk. I want to distinguish between micro and macro agility. You have been enjoying life, right? You've been getting older, but you've been enjoying life. Other than life's normal bumps and grinds, colds and flu. You've had no real health problems. You're less active than you were. You've become a little slower, more easily winded. But you attribute this to the normal effects of aging. Then it happens. A loved one convinces you to see the doctor because you haven't been to a doctor since Moby Dick was a minnow. So you should see one. The doctor finds that your cholesterol is at a troubling level and you've got high blood pressure. So they prescribe a statin for the blood pressure and an ACE inhibitor for the cholesterol problems. You say, okay, you go home, you take your meds, you seem to be responding, and with the exception of those couple of meds, life is back to normal, right? That's the treatment plan. Statin for cholesterol, ACE inhibitor for the tension. Oh yeah, by the way, you need to eat healthier and get more exercise, and come and see me more often than once every 3 decades. Then it happens. You are dropped to the floor with a heart event. You have had a myocardial infarction, heart attack. Okay, 911 is called, your eyes are spinning around in your head. You don't know if you're gonna see, how many more days you're gonna see. They wheel you in and they discover you have arteriosclerosis, multiple blockages, in fact. The treatment plan is arterial stent or bypass surgery. But you know what? We also still worried about your blood pressure, all your triglycerides and cholesterol. And you know what? Your A1C is pre-diabetic and you're carrying way too much fat around your belly. That's a problem. So what's the treatment plan for that? They said, well, you got metabolic syndrome. So we're going to keep up with the prescription drug regimen, but you need to change your lifestyle. If you want to walk your daughter down the aisle, you need to change. You need a new exercise regimen, you need a new nutrition regimen, and you need a new sleep regimen. And of those 3, the nutrition is the most important because you can't out-train a bad diet. Right? Your organization's doing okay. The department you're in charge of is doing okay. You had a couple with trouble. You had this one incident where you got some customers who were kind of complaining about your speed of delivery, maybe your responsiveness to change. But you attribute that to the fact that they're finicky and fickle, they're exceptions, right? But you know what? You all of a sudden miss 3 deliveries and you lose that customer. Damn. Call in some consultants, you form a task force because this is what you do. They call in some consultants and they say, product development isn't delivering fast enough. Treatment plan, adopt the Scrum framework. So you hire some people to help you, they give you the training, they do some coaching. There's some bumps in the grinds at night, but the team gets it. And with a couple of exceptions, you're all of a sudden delivering faster. Life gets back to normal. And then it happens. A couple of kids in a basement in Singapore are all of a sudden churning out product at a price point and at a quality point that you have no chance at matching. And with overhead, you couldn't, you're dead in the water. You start hemorrhaging cash, you start hemorrhaging customers, and your employees start taking recruiters' phone calls. Right? This is really serious. So now you call in a higher caliber. Maybe you go for some marquee consultants, some McKinseys or BCGs or something like that. And they come back in and they say, well, you know what? You got all kinds of problems. Because in addition to the product delivery, your strategic plan is one in name only. There's low trust between management and staff. Your budgeting process and then how you approve expenditures is a new exercise in pain. It's more of an endurance test. And you're carrying way too much fat in the form of unnecessary managerial controls and needless complexity and bureaucratic bloat around your belly. Treatment plan for that, you've got organizational metabolic syndrome. Treatment plan, adopt agile frameworks to treat specific points of pain, but you need to transform the whole organization. You need more agility in the way you do things, and you need more agility in how you govern the way you do things. And the key is going to be in your culture, how you renovate your culture. This is the difference. Micro agility is the treatment of the problem. Macro agility is the treatment of the patient. Micro agility is still, it's useful. It's the adoption of an agile framework to treat a specific problem or point of pain. Excellent in bringing light to problems, pinpointing underlying causes, and things that we've already talked about, Scrum, SAFe, XP, things like that. Those are examples of micro agility frameworks. But macro agility is a treatment of the patient. It recognizes that there are individual issues, but it treats the whole organization as a whole system. Macro agility is agility in the overall organization, how it's led, how it's managed, and how it's operated. Another name for it is organizational agility. How's that for creative? All right. It consists of the organizational agility to make the existing business better and strategic agility to grow the business and advance the mission. We have a framework for how you do that. And that's one of the things we're talking about. So after lunch, we are going to get into the how.